Would I share it from my computer, or it's better for you to share? Okay. Yes, I'm gonna send it to you in the chat because it's actually on. So I sent you a link to Google Docs. Let me tell me if you can access it, and I'll make sure that maybe. Let me try to see if I can share it.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending the event today. Please help yourself to some light refreshments and coffee. Our event will begin in 5 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, as we are about to begin, please be seated. Kindly switch your mobile phone to silence mode. Thank you for your cooperation. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning and a very warm welcome on behalf of Taiwan Tech Arena to our distinguished speakers and to all our guests this morning. Welcome to the Global Investor Forum, where it invites the world's top investor and startup ecosystem app and research center to share their experience in contributing to the success and growth of their entrepreneurship. Now, to kick off today's event, let's invite Andrea Xu, Director General of National Science and Technology Council, to deliver a welcome remark, please.
Okay, Louis, Phil, and our distinguished speaker, Bill, Eli, and Jeep. And distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and good evening to the speakers online. And I'm Andrea Xu, the Director of National Science and Technology Council, NSTC. On behalf of NSTC, I sincerely welcome you all to join our forum, Global Investor Forum. And TTA stands for Taiwan Tech Arena, established by National Science Technology Council in 2018. We intend to build and strengthen Taiwan's startup ecosystem and helping by translating scientific research into startups and helping startups connect with the global. And we also we support startups through international accelerators, not just for fundraising, but also more important of all is for the connecting their international platform. And we also facilitate startups moving forward toward the viable and in-depth cooperation with multinational and investors. That's why we host this mid-August. We just host the 4th year anniversary. That's why we organized the Global Investor Forum at that time. But unfortunately, we had some technical problem. So I told my colleagues and TDM teams, as a hub of startups, iconic startup hub, we should have the spirit to learn and to face our failure. So just like the Batman movie said, we fall, but we can learn how to pick up ourselves up. So we reorganized the forum again. Thank you very much for Eli and Bill to join and Jeep to join this forum again. And this time we invite Phil. Bill is our TTA Black Power member, and in the past 2 years, because of COVID-19, I think many people suffer a lot of things, as well as TTA, but the only one fortunate thing that we have Black Power members from Silicon Valley to develop more connection with Taiwan's startup ecosystem. So later, Phil will join our investor forum. So without further ado, I sincerely hope today's event a great success, and all participants here with an enjoyable and inspiring experience here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director General. Please take a seat, please. Thank you. Now, may I invite all our speakers for a group photo, please. Thank you. Please, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your cooperation. So, may I please go back to your seat? Thank you. Next up, please allow me to introduce our first speaker, Eli David, co-founder and CEO at StartupBlink, who will first give us a keynote on the foundings of global ecosystem ranking reports. StartupBlink ranks the startup ecosystems of more than 1,000 cities and 100 countries. Eli is also a co-founder of LingoLearn.com, an online language school with thousands of clients and teachers from all around the world. Now, let's say a big hello to Eli online. Hello, Eli.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me.
The floor is yours, Eli, please.
Thank you. So we can go to the next slide. Today we're going to talk about the Global Startup Ecosystem Index and how Taiwan is ranking in this report. My name is Eli David. It's really nice to meet you. It's an honor to work with the Taiwanese ecosystem for so long, and I honestly really enjoy it. I think it's a great honor for me. So I'll just say that generally this index, I'll talk a little bit about the global rankings and so on, and I'll also give a little bit of a taste for the local rankings as well. So if we look at the agenda, first of all, I'll tell you a little bit about myself, then the results of the global, then key insights, and a little bit about Taiwan. So we can go to the next slide. A little bit about myself. In my past, I'm a certified public accountant. I used to work in KPMG and BDO. I think I've done what we want our ecosystem in Taiwan to do, which is to leave the big companies and start and become an entrepreneur. So this is something that definitely is something that we want to see more of in Taiwan, of course. Basically, I had the privilege of working with many ecosystems around the world, the Asian Development Bank and the governments of Singapore, a few municipalities in Japan, and so on. I just came back from Uganda from Project for the UN, so it's really fun to see how everyone around the world is trying to build their startup ecosystem. It's exciting to see even places like Uganda and Africa and so on that are just understanding the power of ecosystems. And I'm also very glad that Taiwan understood this a very long time ago and now has a very unique advantage compared to a few countries and cities that only understood it right now. So we can go to the next slide. And over here, we're going to talk a little bit about StartupBlink. I'll just give you a quick introduction. StartupBlink is a global startup ecosystem map. It's an interactive map. It's open for the public. Usually, there are many people using it for understanding where to relocate, where to invest, and have a little bit of a visualized take on how ecosystems look like around the world. We have a dashboard for each city, for each country to get a little bit of a feel of the ecosystem. And as you mentioned before, we rank the startup ecosystems of 1,000 cities and 100 countries. So we can go to the next slide. We don't gather all the information alone. We have a few very strong global data partners in order to rank all those cities. Some of those will be Crunchbase, SEMrush, Meetup, the UNAIDS. We just add Statista to this and a few others, Coworker and so on. So we take a lot of information from many sources in order to get the most accurate results out there. So next slide, please. Great. I'll talk a little bit about the index itself. The results, as I mentioned, are being used by many people. There are a lot of people that understand that where they are, the ecosystem that they choose to be, is going to be very influential for their chances of success. And many entrepreneurs now understand that picking the right place is actually one of the most important activities that you can do while you're developing your startup. It's a decision we can't run away from. So the index is exactly doing that. It's there to tell people, look, this is what's happening all over the world. And if you're thinking about moving to a specific place, here are the places you should consider. If you go to the next slide, I'll tell you a little bit about the parameters. So there are 40 parameters. They're in 3 main baskets. And what we do in StartupBlink is we don't care so much, or we can't really measure the soft achievements. We check only results. We're checking how many, the quantity. In this case, we check how many startups, co-working accelerators, how many meetups, how many global influencers there are. The quality, we check the traction each startup has, the amount of unicorns, the total amount of funding per ecosystem, total amount of employees, R&D centers, and so on and so on. And then we also check the business environment of each location in order to rank. So it's one big formula that runs on thousands of locations. So it's good for us because we don't have to make any decisions about a specific location. We measure everyone exactly on the same parameters, and we keep on improving the formula. So if we go to the next slide, I will talk a little bit of results. We're doing the results both for countries and for the cities. So if we talk about the countries, the big 4 countries remain the same. Those are the really very successful countries, and those are the United States, the United Kingdom, Israel, and Canada. Over here, we also calculate per capita. So we take into account the population when we do the country rankings. There are some other ecosystems in the top 10 that are very interesting as well, some of them from Europe, some of them from Asia. So it's really interesting to see how this is shifting. And we also have, I'm going to share with you good news from Taiwan later on about the country ranking as well this year. I'll just say that there are a few new countries in the ranking, so we always love to congratulate the new countries. And this year it's been Andorra, Senegal, Kosovo, Angola, and Kyrgyzstan. So that's a little bit about the ranking. If you want to see the full picture, you can go to startupblink.com. We can go to the next slide and talk a little bit about the cities. So as we all know, there are a few very, very strong ecosystems around the world. Those are the top 10. As always, we have the queen of startup ecosystems, where Bill is from, which is San Francisco, a very, very powerful ecosystem. Although I have to say that as the year passes, every year we see that the gap between San Francisco and the cities below it is getting smaller and smaller. All the cities are learning the methods of Silicon Valley and can now narrow the gap, which is absolutely fascinating to see. In the top 10, you can see, by the way, some interesting things. Some of those cities are going to have a very global startup ecosystem. Namely, you would identify over here San Francisco, New York, London, Los Angeles, Boston, Tel Aviv, and slightly Paris. Some of those ecosystems rely on very massive population size that allows them to rank very high, although they're very local. In this case, we have, for example, Beijing, Shanghai, Bangalore, which is the lesson maybe to the Taiwanese ecosystem, because we don't have that much population. Of course, we have to aspire to become a global ecosystem. All our solutions have to be global, on the global level, because the population size is not there yet. And it's actually very good. I have to say, I'm from Israel, and it's a big advantage of being a small country, because then our entrepreneurs from day one are thinking about going global, not building a local solution. We can go to the next slide. A little bit about Taiwan's results. So as you can see, Taiwan enters for the first time the top 25 in the world. It's also ranked relatively high on the Asian level, including Australia and New Zealand and so on. So we're now a 25 top ranked country in the world, which is absolutely amazing. There are 200 countries in the world, so we're doing really well. We're also a hardware powerhouse. We're ranked 14 globally in hardware and IoT. This is a massive advantage. It's so hard to get to the top 20 of any industry. And hardware and IoT, most of the governments are extremely interested in this specific industry. By the way, Taipei ranks over there at number 7, which is top 10 city for hardware and IoT. It's just an amazing leverage and advantage. And very, very happy to see that. We also recently did a report and a map of COVID-19 innovation, and over there Taiwan ranks at number 9 in the world. The COVID response has been outstanding also in terms of innovation in Taiwan. We also rank very high on health, 15, and marketing and sales. So we have quite a few verticals that were very strongly in the top 20, in some of them even in the top 10. We can move to the other slide. A little bit about the rankings. We still have the beauty of what's happening in the last few years with the Taiwanese ecosystem is that we have new cities joining. Back in the days, we only had Taipei. And in the last few years, we're seeing more and more cities joining the rankings. It's very hard to get to the top 1,000 cities. There are tens of thousands of cities in the world, and those cities keeps on growing. First of all, Taipei maintains its position as a top 50 startup ecosystem globally. There is so much competition in the top 50. It's an outstanding result. And I always say that we have to keep in mind that Taipei is the gem of the ecosystem and the center of the ecosystem. However, we see quite a few ecosystems that are joining the Taipei ecosystem, which is absolutely great. And I'll talk about each one of them soon. We can go to the next slide. So a little bit about Taipei. It's ranked, of course, first in Taiwan, 8 in East Asia. As I mentioned before, hardware and IoT, we're top 10 ecosystem globally. Transportation, top 30. Social and leisure, top 30. The cities rankings, by the way, is much more difficult to go to the top because there are so many American cities that are on the top. So there's only one USA, but a lot of cities. So being in the top 50 is really a testament to the strength of our ecosystem. We can go to the next slide. Sinchu is the second ranked ecosystem, and I'm very happy to say that it's also ranked now. This year it made a jump to now be ranked in the top 200 globally. It made a jump of 89 places, so that's absolutely great. Hardware and IoT, once again, a strong vertical, health tech, energy and environment. So that's a very meteoric rise of a great city. We can go to the next slide. Taiwan is also great momentum. It made it for the first time in the top 500 globally. It's number 440. It jumped 70 spaces. We see a very rapid development in the secondary cities and the secondary ecosystems. So that's absolutely great. Another city that is doing very well. Next slide, please. Tainan as well. A massive jump of 163 places globally. Also a top 200 in energy and environment. Again, it's the same trend. More and more Taiwanese ecosystems are joining the leading ecosystems. We can see the next one. Taichung, the same story, only that the jump has been more impressive. 256 places, it's now ranked 614. Food tech, top 150, also in hardware and IoT. Again, we have backup from other cities as well. It's not only Taipei, it's other cities as well that are producing high quality result. And the next slide is going to be, if I'm not mistaken, the last city, Kaohsiung, that is also made a very interesting jump of 178 places to be ranked now in the top 750. Good results on hardware and IoT. So what we see is a variety for a relatively small country to have so many ecosystems. It's really inspiring and it's really good news for us. If we go to the next slide, we can talk a little bit about the case study of Israel, where I'm from, and maybe what we can learn from it. So Israel is a good example of making lemonade from lemon. We have a very complicated security situation for many, many years. And actually this complicated security situation created the Israeli startup ecosystem. So sometimes a relatively difficult geopolitical situation is the reason why our ecosystem is so strong. In Israel's case, it's because the army is the biggest accelerator, I think, in the world, the Israeli army, and people just meet each other and kind of have a sense of meaning and so on. And it just creates a lot of people are less afraid of risks and so on, and then it really helps the ecosystem grow. The culture and the mentality of the local entrepreneurs is also very important in Israel, and I have to say that this is the thing that we want to push towards, to be in a situation that our Taiwanese entrepreneurs are very much by default want to start their own business instead of joining the big companies and so on. This is something that happens in Israel. Everyone wants to have their startup, and I think that would be when we have this change or a shift, that's going to be one of our biggest wins. Also in Taiwan, of course, the economy of Israel is based on the startup economy. Much of the growth and the power of the nation is arriving from the startup. The government is actively supporting entrepreneurs that are working on deep tech solutions and global solutions. So that's something that we see a lot of support, but a very, let's say, a selective approach of supporting those that would really make the difference on the global level. We have a lot of universities sharing information with entrepreneurs. One of our biggest startups, Mobileye, is born from an initiative in my university, the Hebrew University. In Israel, we understand that the scientists and so on not necessarily want to build their own startups. So we are always finding ways to give ideas from the scientists, from the university lecturers to the business people who are building startups in order to create those very high quality partnerships. We have a culture of celebrating entrepreneurs. For us, each success is basically someone is succeeding. It's an achievement for the country. We celebrate it. People feel proud of their achievement. More and more people want to join and to become entrepreneurs. And Israel now has a narrative of a startup nation, which is very helpful because once you are recognized around the world as a successful country, as a successful startup ecosystem, then, of course, by definition, more and more people are going to arrive. And we can go to the last slide, which is a little bit about the opportunities and advantages of the Taiwanese ecosystem. So of course, first of all, if we focus, just like the Israelis are doing, if we focus actually on the deep tech projects that have a lot of promise for the futures, that's going to be our biggest win. So the idea is to focus on those that make an impact and only those that go globally. Of course, the local market might not be big enough to support the birth of a very, very strong ecosystem. So we have to be a little bit selective in those that we take a bet on. And other than that, of course, let the entrepreneurs do the magic themselves without that much involvement, because that's what entrepreneurs are good at. They're creating great initiatives on their own. Taiwan is a hardware powerhouse. This is a massive advantage. We have a strategic industry globally that everyone is trying to excel at. And Taiwan is doing absolutely great. A lot of it is because we already have those successful companies from the past. Our recommendation always is to have more successful corporates that are more involved in creating the next generation of our Taiwanese startups. We have the best companies in the world in Taiwan in their field. Of course, if they are more involved in the startup ecosystem and they're doing more and more partnerships, we will push more people in the startup ecosystem, which is what we want. We want the next generation of successful Taiwanese startup. Of course, what we do very well is the activity of building the networks and connections. This event also proves it with Silicon Valley, with Tel Aviv, with London. This is exactly what we want. One of the things that we always say, let's celebrate each achievement. Our entrepreneurs are our national heroes. They are the people that are building the legacy of our startup ecosystem. We need to be in a situation that everyone knows that by helping us build the ecosystem, they're also helping the country grow. They're helping its economic success and so on. So that's what we always try to do. And of course, continue developing our secondary ecosystems. Taipei is the gem. It's the center. We have to keep on focusing on it, but also to create those ecosystems around the country like we're doing so well. And then last slide, if we can go to it, is basically just my contact details. So thank you so much for inviting me, and I'm really excited to see what the future brings. I think it's like the trend is so good that I can't wait. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, let me introduce to you our moderator this morning, Louis Chen, General Director of CIS at Industrial Technology Research Institute. Louis has 20 years of experience in business developing locally and internationally. Throughout his career, Louis worked for several well-known international entrepreneurs and served as board of director. Now, let's all give a warm welcome to Louis. Next up, please allow me to introduce to you our panelists this morning. Phil Chen, founding partner at Race Capital. Phil Chen is an enterprise and investors. He is also decentralized chief officer at HTC, founding partner of Crescent Capital and CEO of New Taipei Kings. He has over 10 exits to companies like Google, Intel, Qualcomm, Niantic, Discord, Epic, Roblox, Adobe, etc. Let's all give a warm welcome to Phil. Next up, please allow me to introduce to you Jeep Kline, founding partner of Mr. Pink VC. Jeep is also the founder of C-Sky Lab, a senior executive at Intel and pre-IPO technology companies, an economist at the World Bank with 20 years of expertise in driving the success of technology-based organizations in many countries. Let's say a big hello to Jeep online. Hello, Jeep. Hello.
Hi there. Thank you.
Last but not least, please allow me to introduce to you our fourth panelist, Bill Reichert, partner of Pegasus Tech Ventures. Bill managed Pegasus investments in the U.S. from the Silicon Valley headquarters. He has over 20 years of experience as an entrepreneur and 2 public companies. Let's all say a big hello to Bill online. Hello, Bill. Ladies and gentlemen, the panel discussion is about to begin. The floor is all yours, Louis, please.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Louis. We have our very honor to have this conference and panelist with all of our VIP from Silicon Valley and also from Israel. And also we also have invited very good VIP, very young entrepreneur and from Taiwan, right? Thank you very much. Today, this morning, we already know the Taiwan ecosystem, especially our StartupBlink, the Dr. Eli, to tell us. And he also give us the very important suggestions for we are still contribute to our deep tech projects. And also we got to let our success corporate to invite to our ecosystem. And then we got to activate, to create, and also to link to the international ecosystems. And we also got to celebrate our success, entrepreneur in Taiwan, to let them know, to let everybody know their success stories. We probably make their very good stories for us a good reference. So these are all of everything, and then we thank you, Dr. Eli, to give us a very good suggestions on this. Thank you, Dr. Eli. Well, and then we got to see for my, my impressions that Bill, hello, are you there? Good.
I'm back.
As I remember
I'm
that,
here.
yeah. As I remember that Bill's Pegasus fund. Pegasus fund actually is the play like in the worldwide the first, the largest corporate venture fund. So I would like to, first of all, we got to let Bill introduce himself. And then I would like to ask that you already know from the Dr. Eli's presentations that the Taiwan ecosystem positions it. You also own the very large corporate fundings. Then what do I say that you also invest in Taiwan startup as well? Then I would like to know, how could you leverage Taiwan ecosystem and how could you bring Taiwan startup to the corporate in your corporate ventures? Please, thank you.
Okay. All right. There were at least three layers to that question. I think the first layer was, who are you, Bill? And in terms of introducing myself. But yes, I got a nice earlier introduction. I'm a partner at Pegasus Tech Ventures, and I am also the chief evangelist of the Startup World Cup, which is the biggest and richest startup competition on the planet right here, right? But I did, as was alluded to earlier, I started out here in Silicon Valley actually as a grad student at Stanford. I started my first software company. This was a long time ago, long before, it was popular for Stanford grad students to start their own companies. But so that's what got me hooked into the Silicon Valley ecosystem. And I did 4 startup companies in that as an entrepreneur, 2 of which actually went public and the other 2 crashed and burned. So there's not necessarily a consistency in any entrepreneur's ability to guarantee success. And I've subsequently learned that also as an investor. So after my brief career, my career as an entrepreneur wasn't that brief, it was several years. I got together with Guy Kawasaki and several other people, and we started a venture fund called Garage Technology Ventures. And our mission was to be the most outreach-oriented venture capital firm on the planet. We wanted to cast the net globally to find entrepreneurs wherever they were on the planet and connect them into the venture capital ecosystem to enable them to get funding and to grow global success stories. So we were wildly successful at Garage, and that was great fun. And then many years later, I ran into Pegasus,
and found an even bigger platform that actually had a global footprint. And so we joined forces, and that's how I became a general partner at Pegasus. But the Pegasus model, to your point, is to work with global multinational corporations to create funds with dedicated mandates for each of our limited partners to invest in emerging technologies of strategic value to them, and to connect portfolio companies with those corporations to both accelerate the growth of the portfolio companies and to accelerate the innovation of our corporate partners, and hopefully thereby create value on all sides of the investment equation, which would also benefit us as the venture capital general partners. So that's the big idea behind Pegasus, and Pegasus has been able to scale that to the point where we are the largest venture capital as a service model on the planet, with over $2 billion of capital under management and over 30 multinational corporate partners. So the big idea is, if we can find brilliant entrepreneurs in Taiwan, what we would do is connect them to our corporate partners that have an interest in the technology and in the business, where they might be able to participate in scaling them globally and or helping them with their technology development, or perhaps helping them with their manufacturing or some other aspect of the business, to enable them to become global success stories. So that is the big idea behind Pegasus, and that's what I get to do every day, from 7 in the morning until 9 at night.
Well, that's probably a very good way to recruit the Taiwan corporates as your LP and help them to invest Taiwan startup, huh? That's probably one of the very good ideas.
That's and we welcome all comers. We already have LPs in Taiwan, and we are eager to continue our relationships and add to those relationships. So yes, if you're a corporate, if you're an entrepreneur, feel free to reach out to Pegasus.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Hi, Ms. Jeep. Kline, hello, how are you doing?
Doing really well. Thank you for having me.
Well, I just know that from our LinkedIn, right? I just know you are talking to or has a conference with our Minister Wu, right? Oh, that's good. You're talking about the healthcare or something else. But as I know that you also create and launch the impact venture investment in Latin American, right? I think that you probably could give us more in details and also help to talking about how the impact return contributed to the startup and how startup use the impact that you say to the investor or to let them good for their fundraising. Please.
Absolutely. So happy to share. So I'm going to break down your questions into small questions.
Good.
I'm happy to talk about how I started my impact VC fund, White Line America, and some of the examples of the investment that I do and how we help entrepreneurs raise fund in the subsequent round. So I'm an economist by training, and I started working as an economist at the World Bank. That was my first job out of graduate school. And, because I'm from Bangkok, Thailand, and I realized that there are a lot of potential in emerging markets around the world, right? So because of the training and the background and the experience that I've had, including at Intel, as well as founding my own company, I realized that, there are there are some themes in my work. And what I like to say is financial returns are necessary, but not sufficient. The impact returns are the key to really move the economy forward. And if you look at what really moved the economy forward, what are the most important sector right now? It is technology. So more than 50% of the listed companies in stock market in the US right now, it used to be venture-backed company. It used to be a startup. So if you ask the same question, what's going to happen 20 years from now or 10 years from now? It's gonna rise a lot. So what can we do in other countries outside the US to use the influence of technology to create and enlarge the economy? So it's going to have to be tech. So the thesis or the theme of my work is technology investment is a vehicle for economic development. So I go into the high growth region where entrepreneurs felt like they're overlooked and underserved because they might not have the opportunity to come to Silicon Valley right away, but they're brilliant, they're entrepreneurs, they understand their local markets. And that's how I launched my first fund. And so it's an impact fund investing in Latin America, and hopefully in the follow-on funds, I'm going to expand it to cover other regions, including Eastern Europe as well as Asia. So that's the thesis of the fund. Now, you kind of asked the question, what does it mean to measure the impact? And a lot of people also ask me, I'm also teaching impact VC class at UC Berkeley, High School of Business. And it's still a VC, meaning we expect the investment to generate returns because we have investors of our fund. We have limited partners, so we have high expectation, like any other investment in a typical VC firm, from a typical VC firm. But at the same time, the type of investment that we do have to create impact returns, and usually that is in the form of social returns or environmental returns. For example, an edtech company. Edtech company means, we invest in a startup that the entrepreneurs are women from Peru. They, create a company when people lost their jobs during COVID, right? And they knew that they can train, whether that may be taxi driver or whoever that lost jobs, to become a developer. So that those people can go out in the job market and now earn 3x wage rate that they did when driving taxi, or 5x the wage rate that when they drive taxi. So it becomes the cycle of creating jobs and increasing the income, while they take a percentage cut of when they place those developers into the job market. So the company has high growth, generating a lot of revenue. And in fact, even though they're in early stage, they're all profitable. The taxi driver get a job now. They don't want to drive taxi anymore. They want to become a developer. They find a better job and create employment on the economy. So in this case, the impact returns are the fact that we create jobs in the local economy that can scale throughout Latin America, not just in Peru. In fact, they were in Argentina and also Uruguay right now. We also create financial returns through our investment in the company, let alone the fact that the women founders, that also another impact classification or variable that we also look at when we made the return, but it's not mandatory in my fund right now.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. But I'm interested in one question that you probably know many startups from Taiwan currently, and you know the Taiwan startup situation in general right now, currently, right? And then you also say that social impact, actually there is a very, very important factor, actually, is the technology, right? Now, you may know that Taiwan has a deep technology right now, and the Taiwan startup situation that you also know that. Then I would like to see that what are the suggestions that you could help the Taiwan deep tech to that everybody knows it, and how the Taiwan startup could have a high social impact, as you say?
Absolutely. In fact, I worked with a lot of Taiwanese companies, Taiwanese founders. Generally, what I like to when I advise the founders and CEO of Taiwanese deep tech life science startup company, if they are the first-time founder, okay, they need to learn about the ecosystem and expand their network. So when I'm a key advisor at Skydeck UC Berkeley, I like them to come and take a look whether or not this is the kind of incubation they would like to attend or join, maybe for 4 months or 6 months, so that they can get to know Silicon Valley, they get to meet investors like Bill, who can, not only invest in a company, but he has deep expertise and knowledge to really coach the entrepreneurs on how to grow sustainably. They get to meet with faculties, with other entrepreneurs like themselves, who may be from other countries, maybe from Latin America, Europe, or even Africa. So first-time founder, it is really important that they build the network to know what the ecosystem looks like, what is the stage of the growth. Second, they get to develop the business plan, right, in a way that they can overcome the different cultures or thinking. Sometimes, what they learn in one country is not the same as what they learn in another country. The growth trajectory, right? And number three, which is very important, because what I really like about Asia, especially Taiwan, is founders are really, really knowledgeable. A lot of companies that came over here, they have IPs. They have IP portfolios, some even a global one, some they already have registered IP in the US. So their role is to create the product and find product market fit that they can scale either in Asia and in the US later. The best case would be both. And this is why having international linkage or having exposure in Silicon Valley is really helpful for the founders to scale the company and create massive growth later on.
Very good points. Find the right target. Find the right product in the target market, right? That's good. That's good. Phil, sorry, please, because you are at Taiwan, and Dr. Eli will probably cannot accompany with us to the end. So I would like to ask one question to Dr. Eli, that you have more time to think about what we come to ask. Dr. Eli, hello.
Hello, thank you.
Thank you very much. As we know that Israel already, from the startup nation, a step-by-step transfer to the scale-up nations right now, currently. And we also know that Taiwan ecosystem, actually, we also have some of the startup, they already move to the scale-up scale. So would you have some of the suggestions from your experience that a country or a government, how could they help the startup move to the scale up? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so generally, I think it's important to remember that at the end of the day, our startup ecosystem is the center of the startup ecosystems is the entrepreneurs themselves. And at the end of the day, we can have many, many interesting policies and many interesting initiatives and so on, but we are very dependent on the mindset and the psychology of our entrepreneurs. They're going to determine our chances of success. So at the end of the day, what we would like to see more than anything, more than a policy, more than support, more than grants, is a change in the local mindset of people, of young Taiwanese, of even older Taiwanese that would say, I want to start my company because this is the right way to go. This is how I build my financial freedom, my own, let's say, this is how I achieve my personal goals. And this is also how I help the country evolve and get stronger. So I think that our biggest hope is, first of all, for a psychology change or a mindset change of our entrepreneurs to be in a situation that more and more are interested in becoming entrepreneurs. This is the most important thing. Unfortunately, there isn't that much that we can do as a government, as policy, because we're really dependent on them. But generally, what we usually recommend governments is to try to a little bit stay out of the way. Let them do their magic. Let them build their own, as Jeep mentioned, the product market fit. There are some things that we can't necessarily help everyone, but we want to make sure that the policies are there to support the growth. So we want to make sure that our taxes are in place, that the registration is easy, that it's very easy to connect with other ecosystems to get visas and so on, that it's easy to make transactions, and the fintech infrastructure is there, that the legislation is very much encouraging for entrepreneurs. And again, hope that they will take the leadership over here and build their companies. You know how it works in Israel. Everyone has a neighbor or someone they know that built a unicorn, that built a very, very big startup. And then basically when you see your neighbor that was not so smart in the university and he now has a unicorn, you're telling yourself, I'm not going to work for Google. I'm not going to work for Facebook or the big companies. I'm going to build my own startup. So what we need is really a mindset change and a lot of dedication from our entrepreneurs. And sometimes we also need to stay a little bit out of the way and let them innovate, let them struggle on their own. Entrepreneurship is a very difficult path. Most of the startups will fail, and that's totally okay. But we just hope to reach a critical mass to get us to the next level on the global level. And I think you do it very well. We need a little bit more, and I hope that we'll get there soon.
Thank you very much. So the most important things actually is still the change in the mindset, right? And then to how to see the target markets infrastructure, then we back into the infrastructure. The government probably could help them to do like this way. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Eli. Now I got to ask Mr. Bill, Mr. Phil. I know that you has a lot of the experience in investing, like a cryptocurrency, like the, for example, like helping the HTCs, corporate ventures, to invest the metaverse-wise. And right now, you probably has a fund to invest, for example, like the Soul Machine, right? In New Zealand or something else. It is also related to the virtual world, right? And as we know that from local to the global, almost we discuss it's the geographic market segments. But we know in the virtual world, actually it's not the geographic market segments, right? And probably the cultures or something else are quite different. These will segment by yourself, especially the target audience, right? So right now, in your experience, how could you see the virtual, the meta-virtual world, the virtual worlds, how could they segment? What kind of the segment that you have? Then from now, that is our opportunity. I could stay in Taiwan to discuss with the people, to have a core team, go global only at Taiwan, from Taiwan in the virtual world that I could go global. And then also, Ms. Jeep, they say the social impact then, right? How could we have the social impact in the virtual worlds? Please.
Hi, can you clarify your first question about the...
My first question is, in the virtual worlds, what kind of the market segments, for example, like in the real world, we probably could have your target market segment, so we could segment from the geographic side, right? From the US market, European market, or the others market. And then I would like to know, in the virtual world, what are the target market segment that you probably could come to in your mind? That's one question. The second question is that, how could we cultivate an unicorn from Taiwan at the virtual world? The second question. The third question is, how could we have the social impact in the virtual world? Please.
Hi, thank you for inviting me. Those are very difficult questions. I don't think I have answers. I have more questions than answers. But I guess in terms of segmentation, I think because as you alluded to, virtual worlds seem to be not as bordered or different borders than physical kind of borders. But I do think the digital world, they do have borders, and it's very much like physical borders there. I do think we need to draw a new map for these digital worlds for sure. I mean, even today, as I think about the internet is no longer borderless, permissionless, transparent anymore. The internet as we know it is very much border. I mean, Neil Ferguson, one of the scholars, he calls it the splinternet, right? China has its own internet. India clearly has its own internet. Japan, being a very closed ecosystem, has its own internet. And then the West has its own internet. It's not as open and borderless as we think. And so the metaverse in that sense is very, very much bordered, right? I think, having, one of my funds called President's Capital, we've had companies sold to like Niantic, Roblox, Fortnite. I mean, you can think of Fortnite as its own bordered country. Roblox is its own kind of social network. They don't share data clearly, right? Today, Twitter, they will never share their, social information data with, a Facebook or a Meta, right? They're all its own. You can think of them as its own country, so to speak. And so, in that sense, the internet is very much bordered, and so I think this concept of kind of the virtual world as borderless is no longer the case, especially when we talk about in this Web3 world, right? We always talk about the Web2 world being very much bordered, and so we need to draw a new map. Is what I'm saying, and I'm not saying I have the map in my head right now, but there needs to be that map. And so, yeah, I think, so how does Taiwan create the next unicorn? I think Taiwan historically has been incredibly excellent in the semiconductor space, right? I mean, I don't think we're top 10, while they were number 1 in the world, right? And we've been number 1 for so long. And I would say that the semiconductor world in Taiwan is very global, right? There's nothing local about TSMC or the company or MTK. These companies, they're so global. But I would also say all the people I know in the semiconductor world is so different from the startup world in Taiwan. There's not much communication, even though Taipei and Hsinchu is so close. There literally is very little understanding both ways. The semiconductor world, they don't care or know so much about the metaverse, or Web3 or crypto or startups, right? And vice versa, they don't interact much. And also the semiconductor guys that became unicorns. Taiwan has multiple unicorns, global unicorns in the semiconductor space. They don't invest in this space either, right? And so I would say that we actually don't have to go so far as to go global. We just need to go to Hsinchu and back and forth, and a lot more communication between the semiconductor industry and the startup kind of software internet space. And so I would say a lot of that kind of education and kind of connections need to happen locally before we, because these guys know how to go global. They've set up companies in Silicon Valley, and so they've done it. They have the playbook. They know how to do it. Although, of course, the mindset of being, a semiconductor hardware company is very different from a software internet company. But there is a playbook, and I don't think that playbook in education and stories are shared, right? Like Eli was talking about how, these entrepreneurs in Israel are our national heroes there. These stories are told over and over again. I remember, when I was at Horizons Ventures, Horizons was, a Hong Kong-based firm that we invested in Waze, and Waze was one of the first $1 billion exits in Israel. And I remember just going to Israel, and everybody knew about Horizons. Whenever they found out, oh, you're from Horizons, it's like they wanted me to tell the story of how did you guys, found this company and invested in it, and now it's a unicorn, and it's like these entrepreneurs wanted me to tell them the bedtime story, like, tell me that story again. It's right, Eli? I mean, it's amazing how, startups is a national sport in Israel, right? Like today, if you ask, a lot of people here, I mean, I don't know if people watch the NBA or baseball, you ask, like, they'll know the stats of, like, LeBron James, like 25 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists, field goal percentage, 40%. The Israeli entrepreneurs can do that with investors. They'll know that, hey, this GP at Benchmark invested at the Series A, led the series with 15 million, blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? They know the stats of these GPs and venture funds and startups like stats of sports figures. And so we don't have that culture in Taiwan, right? And I don't have, I'm simply pointing out the difference. I don't have a solution in terms of, and so when Eli says, yes, it depends on the entrepreneur itself. Taiwan, that gap, communication gap between the people who have gone global and just that will and ambition to know what's going on in the world. I think those are some of the missing ingredients with the entrepreneurs that I see in Taiwan.
Yeah, that's something that you say. So that's why I would like to ask that if we have a very good technology and also in the virtual world, actually it's totally different from the real world right now, right? So that probably play an opportunity if we do not have the entrepreneurial spirit like this. So that's why I would like to say, Ms. Jeep, so if that is the case in Taiwan, we have a very good technology to present to the virtual worlds. How could you think, what kind of the mindset or what kind of the job we need to do to create our social impact in the virtual world? In the case, if we could do that, then in the case, in the virtual world, we still could generate the unicorn, even we do not have such kind of the environment or situation, right? Please, Ms. Jeep.
I gotta echo Phil that this is a tough question, the social impact in the virtual world. So to say it outright here, I've seen a lot of deals in crypto, right? That, blockchain and whatnot. And, I asked them, right? Can you show me? So I push back on the entrepreneur. So can you show me how cryptocurrency that you want to create really create an impact in the local economy? If you can, for example, this is like a real life story. So I said, if you just want to create a coin or launch an ICO, can you actually figure out for me how to use cryptocurrency to solve the market failure, like in Venezuela? People who have savings in their life, the economy went to the ground, they, hyperinflation, they lost the value of money as we all know it. If you can actually marry those, right, use the real technology and solve critical problems that some of the countries actually have, then I would like to fund you. But if you want to be like 135th coin with, because you want to launch it because everybody else done it, then it's not social purpose, right? So that's how I kind of view in terms of how we can actually continue to push and influence the new technology and ideas from younger generation to do something that is actually meaningful and impactful.
Oh, that is also very deep and hard questions all right? So Dr. Eli, do you have the idea you're gonna to create a virtual StartupBlink report? Do you have the idea you're going to see?
Everything is remote in this world now, so this is the beauty. We can be very, very far away from Silicon Valley. By the way, this is why Silicon Valley is losing its relative strength, because everything is now remote, everything is virtual, and so on. But at the end of the day, I still say it's human psychology. How do we create a situation that, because it's psychology at the end of the day. So that's going to be the key for everything. And we just need to push the psychology into more entrepreneurship mindset and make people understand that really the biggest contributors or the biggest heroes are the startup founders, and everyone obsessed about it. Like, just like Phil mentioned, it's a mindset change, and it's very hard for us to do the work. Sometimes the population itself has to do the work, and we just push them in the right direction. I will say that sometimes when you help too much, you are actually creating even zombie startups, startups that should not really exist and are just running after the next grant. Just like Jeep mentioned, we want things that solve real problems and real pain. And sometimes by helping too much and holding the hands of the entrepreneurs, we're actually creating a lot of damage. This is the problem of the European startup ecosystem in a way that has never managed to reach the levels of the USA, UK, Israeli ecosystem because of that. So when we pick our strategy, we have to be very, very careful in intervening, and intervene only when it really matters a lot and will make a real either global impact or regional impact. So I'm hoping that this will be the case.
Thank you very much. So there is also
Louis,
one. Yes.
Can I?
Yes, please.
I just want to correct my esteemed colleague Eli here, who made the comment that, quote, Silicon Valley is losing its relative strength in the startup ecosystems. And I just want to correct that and point out that that is not true. What is happening is that other cities are gaining in relative strength. It is not that Silicon Valley is losing in relative strength. So it's a subtle semantic difference, but an important one to point out. And it is in fact a good thing. It is a very good thing for us global investors, because it does mean that there is a much bigger pie out there for us to participate in. And I think it's all good. So Eli, I'm halfway tongue-in-cheek in criticizing you there. I didn't mean to be, but I did want to also sort of jump in on the social impact metaverse question, because I do think we've at least heard some interesting stories about the potential for blockchain, crypto, and whatever if you want to call it the metaverse, but Web3, to enable creative communities to be more successful with less friction than they are by being dependent upon an Amazon or a Shopify for them to be successful in the real world. And I don't know. I mean, we have seen lots and lots of entrepreneurs that have tried to construct this I don't know, idyllic world, maybe, fantastical world. But, Jeep, you're tighter into it. But I've seen it mostly in the creative world and, a fair amount, particularly in the music world. But I've also seen it also in the design world. And it's not revolutionary, it is evolutionary. But where you have seen an increase in cross-border international sort of creative exchange that is enabled increasingly and presumably with, some variation on, stablecoin types of currencies. The token, crypto thing, I agree, has sometimes led people astray, and it's a distraction from, I think, having true social impact. But I'd be sure. I don't know to what extent Taiwan has gotten into this game, but I don't know, Jeep, if you think that there's a chance there that by creating more frictionless ecosystems with more frictionless in sort of every dimension of getting things done, exchanging things, paying for things, trading things. If you think there is, if you're seeing glimmers of social impact that are being enabled by, by this new ecosystem. just a
Yeah. Yeah, you know.
chase. Yeah.
You know, there's
No, I
one. Sorry, Jeep.
No, I think it's a very interesting point. I like what Bill has said. It can start from, I would like to see the real execution and application. For example, it could be something like exchange rate, right? Right now, we know that, the currency fluctuation and whatnot, and the fact that the traditional banking system has charged for the transfer and whatnot. If we can use the technology to reduce the friction, like Bill said, and reduce transaction cost, especially in a way that is much faster, I can see that blockchain technology and all and the Web3 that emerge. I think that there are a lot of potential there. But I want to see this to be used and applied in the right place.
Yeah. That's more interesting questions. That, well, there's one thing. When I was a student in university, my professor told me one question that, so you see, every countries and every people, they play music, very like the music. Why the American music are so popular in the world? So that's also something that in the virtual world, probably there is factors could attract more target audience. Then we got to think whether they are same factors in the real world and also in the virtual world as well. So I would very agree that identify the problem is quite important, though. Then we probably got to see how could we propose the proper solutions there, right? And then that is my question. Whether in the real world, the questions also the same happen in the virtual world, and whether the virtual world's questions also could imply to the real world. That would be more easy to take, right? If not, then we got to think about this. Am I right? So that is one thing that we probably see. We're still waiting for Dr. Eli. Your 40 components, it's in the real world ecosystem, right? If you could have in the virtual world system, we still have the 40 components coming out, then we probably could wait for our virtual ecosystems as well. That is also something or an opportunity that we probably could approach that. So from right now, we probably could let every panelist to give us a short recommendation, the suggestions that how what you got to say to our Taiwan startups. Could I, from Phil?
Yeah, I mean, as you were saying, like, what are some of the things that translate from the physical world to the virtual world? I mean, one thing I think about is, I don't know, if you ask a kid today what he wants for Christmas, he'll say, oh, I want a Fortnite skin, or some Roblox virtual item. Or if you ask a 20-year-old, 25-year-old, they'll want some NFT, like, I don't know, a CryptoPunk or something. You know what I mean? And so I think the equivalent is these brands, whatever Roblox or these NFTs, it's like it's the new Rolex watch, right? It's the new LVMH. They are the culture makers, right? And so in that sense, it's I don't want to say it's the same, but it's similar, right? A CryptoPunk is the new Rolex, so to speak, right? A LeBron James Fortnite skin is the new LVMH, right? It's the same way that people signal to other people, that they're cool or it's fun, or right? How do you signal to other people in the virtual digital space? And so, yeah, I do think these principles of building brand and influencing culture, being influencers and creating it's largely the same as you would do when you're trying to build a brand in the physical world.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Phil. Dr. Eli, I know you got to end of this online is at 11:20, right? Would you please give us some suggestion to our Taiwan startup?
Yes. So first of all, not local, regional, like Singapore, or global. That's something that we ask for, and from our entrepreneurs, if we can't ask anything from them. They have their free lives and they can do whatever they want, but encourage them to go regionally or globally would definitely be an important thing. And of course, always remember our ecosystem, our place, the place that we choose to build our startup is very important for our chances of success. Connect with your fellow entrepreneurs, support them, encourage them, and let's build a great ecosystem together that is a center. We already see people arriving from the outside to Taiwan. I know a lot of people, by the way, that have made Taiwan their home, and I think it's an amazing experience to see such an open, welcoming, and an international ecosystem. And we just need to build the next TSMC. We have to keep in mind that we put the hype a little bit aside. What we want is high quality companies that make a strategic difference. And I'm really looking forward to seeing those. And if we have Taiwanese entrepreneurs in the crowd, build another one, please. We really need it. And and good luck. It's really nice to see how the ecosystem is growing.
Thank you very much. Ms. Jeep, would you give some suggestion to our Taiwan startup?
Yeah, I actually have two words.
Okay.
Think global.
Okay.
So a lot of VCs, when they fund entrepreneurs, it doesn't matter what country you are from. If you're a rising star, if you have global vision, yes, you may start in specific countries, but as long as you can scale, they're going to fund you. And you're going to come with the right network. So always have global market in mind. You may not start global since day one, but that's the vision. You have to believe that the product and the technology and the company that you create can serve the global market. And everyone is the same. It doesn't matter whether you're a Taiwanese or you're from Israel or from the US, everybody has a shot.
Thank you very much. Think global. Thank you very much. Hello, Mr. Bill. Would you have some suggestion to our Taiwan startup? Thank you.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I happen to have some suggestions for Taiwan. As I go around the world, one of the things that surprises me after all of the dissemination of all the education about entrepreneurship, innovation, the whole venture capital thing, there's so much information out there about what investors look for, what it takes to be successful. And yet, when I go around the world and I have an audience and I ask the audience, what do you think is the single most important thing that we VCs look for in determining whether or not to invest in a company? Unfortunately, what I discover is that every audience has not yet learned what the most important thing is. And I'd be curious, I wish I had everybody here. It would be interesting to see what, the collective audience here thinks is the single most important thing for determining whether or not a venture capital firm should invest or isn't going to invest in your company. And this is the lesson for entrepreneurs around the world. What I notice is that most entrepreneurs, when they start talking to investors, what do they talk about? They probably talk about their product, right? They probably talk about how incredibly amazing and innovative and cool and wonderful and different and unique or whatever their product is. Maybe what they'll say is, I'm thinking global, and the global TAM for my product is $3.6 trillion. And so, right, because the global market size is so big, inevitably you have to invest in me because, that must be valuable, right? Or they talk about, their team. Well, my partner went to Oxford, and I went to Stanford, and my other partner, went to whatever. And so we have a world-class team. But what I want to try to teach every entrepreneur on the planet to pay attention to is something that I was taught as a very young entrepreneur by a crusty Boston sales guy who said to me, Bill, customers don't buy products. Customers don't buy products. And I go, Dave, you got to be kidding. That's all we sell. We sell products. What do you mean? What are you saying? No, Bill, customers don't buy products. They buy benefits. I don't know. I'm trying a Boston accent. The point is, the single most important thing for any entrepreneur is they've got to have a compelling value proposition. They've got to offer compelling benefits that will cause customers' hair to stand on end and say, wow, that's incredible. I cannot live without this. If you're trying to sell to an enterprise, the only way to get inside an enterprise is if you are solving a hair on fire problem for that enterprise. There's got to be an extraordinary compelling value proposition. Stop talking about your product. Stop talking about your market. Stop talking about your team. Talk about the... At least he could have started playing music and I would have gone off. Sorry, so you got me into a little bit of a harangue there. But okay, but my key point is focus on being able to articulate the compelling value proposition that you have.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you very much. Look, final conclusion is the benefit from Bill. The go global, think global from Jeep, and also an entrepreneurial mindset from Eli, right? And we will say, bring that involve the Taiwan success industry or corporate to invest our Taiwan startup. That's from Phil, right?
Yeah, actually, I have one practical advice, and it's really only for Taiwan entrepreneurs. I would say that, I say that as, a venture VC myself. I think it would be very helpful if your software, Metaverse, Web3 startup here, to convince somebody who's made it in the semiconductor industry to invest in you. I think if you can do that, I think that goes a long way in starting this bridge and connecting and kind of learning the playbook of how they went global. I think that's the right interaction here that I see will go a long way.
Phil said that we already, for example, the company like the semiconductors, many of the semiconductors already being the unicorn. They have the more experience and all go to go global, right? But right now, currently, they may be short of the viewpoint to invest the other industries out of their semiconductors. So that is something our startup probably could think about your benefit to them, could think about your global market for them, and also to strengthen your storytelling capability and bring yourself to them. That is probably one very good suggestion from Phil, right? Are there any questions from our audience that we got to ask our panelists here? Please raise your hand.
Yes, thank you, Louis, for hosting the panel. So now we have the Q&A sections. Does anyone have any questions? Yes? Yes, please.
Hello, I'm founder of Locust. We are building smart scooter sharing system to let 800 million existing scooter and motorcycles be shared automatically. I got 3 quick question and answer for all. There is, if Taiwan wanna gain the international competitiveness, what kind of startups will you suggest to invest in? Blue ocean, red ocean. Pioneer of what? Taiwan version of something. Third is survive from COVID or fresh startup after COVID. There are three kinds of questions. One is, the first one is blue ocean, red ocean.
Who you got to go first?
Bill, Jeep, and Eli, yes.
He has the three questions and then for three panels, so it's 9 already, right?
Yeah.
This is right. This is where I pass the baton to Jeep and say, Jeep. So, boy, I mean, there are lots of sort of simple paradigms for sort of thinking about this or this. And I have learned long time ago, never suggest that there is only one way or the other in any given situation. That what you think may be a red ocean may be an ecosystem that is screaming in pain for lack of a good enough solution to the next wave of problems. So it's in a blue ocean. What we've learned a long time ago is there is no such thing as a first mover advantage. It is always a first mover disadvantage. And so this red ocean, blue ocean thing is, it's a somewhat useful kind of frame for, discussing your market opportunity, but it's not a definitive way of determining good or bad. And your other frames, pre-COVID, post-COVID, or local Taiwan or global, again, generally, for most entrepreneurs, if you're interested in going global, in fact, your reality is you have to act local. So I agree with Jeep, think global. But the reality is, what you develop and serve in Taiwan is going to be different than what is going to be, what's going to sell in California. And so, yes, think global. But you got to prove that you have a compelling value proposition somewhere, and that model is replicable somewhere else in order for investors to be willing to invest in your local success story, believing that you can take it globally. So I hope that helps a little bit. And now over to Jeep.
Core competency. No matter blue or red, right? So please, Jeep.
I actually agree with Bill, so I'm not going to repeat the answer, but I would like to add, right? I would like to add for Taiwanese entrepreneurs, right, that go venture and explore. Meaning, everybody has strengths and weaknesses. In economics term, we like to say that you got to use your comparative advantage and competitive advantage, and you want to figure out what those are. And one way to figure out is to try new things. And once you try to figure out new things based on your competitive advantage, your skills and your strengths, then expand it, build a network. I like to tell my students that, to build a startup or your career, there are 3 things that you're going to do repeatedly after graduation: skills, knowledge, and network. And these are the 3 things. It's kind of like 3-legged stool that's going to help you, move from industry to industry, from vertical to vertical by leveraging your strengths. And I would like to see all entrepreneurs to do the same. So yes, I agree with Bill. There's no blue or red ocean, right? There is no one answer that is cookie cutter for everybody. The beauty about being entrepreneurs, you gotta figure it out. That's the fun part.
Thank you very much. Comparative advantage and also the skill, knowledge, and network to build your blue oceans. Okay, that's Phil.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people here have heard of the term product market fit. I think one question, as an investor, we ask entrepreneurs is like, why you? Why are you the person to solve this problem? And so I think, my kind of thinking around this is, product market fit is important, of course, but I think when we ask that question is because we're asking what's the founder market fit, what's your core competency in your experience that enables you to be the person in this world to solve that problem? And so I always found that very helpful when I ask, it gives me really deeper insight when I ask entrepreneurs this question: why you? What's your founder kind of market fit?
Why you and the founder market fit? Okay, thank you. Are there any questions
Does anyone have any questions? Yes, please.
Is that working? Yeah. Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for taking your time. It's been very interesting to hear all of your experiences. My name's Adil. I'm actually visiting Taiwan from Texas, so I just came here for a little bit. So it's been really nice to hear y'all's focus on Taiwan and how entrepreneurship is growing here. I'd like to focus in on Bill's last advice about kind of value proposition. So Bill gave this kind of overview, and I've heard a lot of VCs saying, like, tell us your value prop. How are you solving these problems? What are the issues? All this stuff. What is like a practical kind of advice in that realm of how has someone come to you and said, here is my value proposition, here is the issues I'm solving, that's really resonated or really been helpful in getting in whatever, be it healthcare, be it crypto, be it whatever, that they really resonated with you and showed how they are solving this and providing a value proposition?
Thank you for your questions.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I can tell you a few of my favorite pitches, but one of my favorite pitches that just absolutely nailed it was I was actually at an event like this, except we were all together. And chatting with a group of entrepreneurs, and an entrepreneur walked up to me and said, so Bill, what would you say if I told you we can accelerate big data analytics by a factor of 100x without changing your hardware? And I was like, okay. And I blurted out the first thing that came to mind, which I probably shouldn't have blurted out, but I said, I'd say you're lying to me. and she did not blink. She just said, well, what if I told you we proved it last summer in a test with Major League Baseball? And I said, when can you come into our conference room for a partners meeting? It was the fastest partner pitch that, I've ever experienced. But that's the point. I mean, she cut right to the core of an incredibly amazing, compelling value proposition that was, obviously valuable, right? I mean, and so, so many entrepreneurs are not able to articulate their compelling value proposition in a way that is obvious, so obvious, and that will stimulate the reaction in us of, wow, that is amazing. Tell me more. So that's what, that's my practical advice to entrepreneurs is, can you articulate your compelling value proposition in sort of quantifiable 10 times better? I mean, in her case, she was 100 times better, but, in a materially clear, exceptionally compelling value proposition that is credible, right? My immediate reaction was, all entrepreneurs lie. And so she was missing something. And she said, no, boom, here's my credibility. We proved it last summer with Major League Baseball. So I knew what she was doing. And I knew what the compelling value proposition was. And she had credible evidence that she was telling the truth. And she did it all in like 20 seconds. She did it all in about 20 words. She got all of that across in 20 words and got invited into our partners meeting. So I tell you, I mean, that's what you should be aiming for as an entrepreneur. Can you distill down what is amazing about your company into 20 seconds that is clear, compelling, and credible?
Tell your investor the benefit he could get in 20 minutes.
Seconds. 20 seconds.
Sorry, 20 seconds only.
20 seconds.
Sorry, 20 seconds only. Please.
Yes, thank you very much for your sharing, and also thank you for your questions. So there will be last questions. Does anyone have any questions? Because we are run out of time. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is Harry Lu from Prolong Capital Investment. My question is to Jeep. When you are doing the cross-border investment, what are the most troublesome issues that you think that is?
I wish the answer is exchange rate, legal, and all of those, business things, but it's actually not. It's not. We actually, as an investor, global investor, we learned how to de-risk those kind of business risks. So the remaining risks is actually about the entrepreneurs themselves and the mindset. Do they really understand the investor mindset, the global investor mindset, why they should be, first of all, a VC-backed company? A lot of companies that came to me from Asia and from Latin America, they are actually an SME, small and medium enterprise. They're not a VC-backed company, but because they're new, they call themselves startup, right? So I think that is number one that I found now that I continue to invest in more countries. Number two, what kind of mindset do you have? Because once you are in a VC-backed industry, so the expectation is different. So once they really understand expectations from the VC and understand that, there is a certain growth trajectory that, they have to hit the milestone and whatnot, then they feel a little bit more integrated, even though they might not be located in the US. And I think these are really important to a distinction that they need to know ahead of time before coming to VC, even though they're a new company, but not every company is classified as a technology startup company.
Good. It is still mindset, huh? Dr. Eli said the entrepreneur mindset, it is ourselves, from ourselves. And Mr. Jeep say the target market, the target mindset, it is from the other opposite side, but we still need to take care of the mindset. Bill also, the benefit, it's also another mindset from the market. Phil also, the market fit, it's also another mindset. So all of that, talking about a mindset. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much for all your sharings. And also thank you, Lewis, for hosting the panel. I'm sure that we have some great conversations. And now, I would like to say a big thank you to Phil, Jeep, Bill, and Eli for sharing with us today. Before we apart, I want to thank you for all your attention in the Facebook friends for tuning in online. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much for your joining.
Now, may I invite our Director General come to our stage and please be seated. Now, may I invite all the audience come to the stage in front and have a group photo, please.